Hello, everybody, and welcome to Kick Conflict to the Curb, the place where growth-minded people come to learn how to use their voice and feel comfortable even during tough conversations. I'm your host, communication coach, Joyce Weiss. And today I have a guest that is going to blow you away. I went on her website. She and I met before the interview, and there is so much to offer. And I would like to first introduce our guest, the audacious confidence growth expert. Alicia Couri is the founder and CEO of Alicia Couri Incorporated, a boutique consulting firm specializing in the development of audaciously proactive leaders and teams using brain science and people data to identify strengths, boost confidence, improve communication, reduce conflict, and multiply results for the organization. And the amazing thing is that whenever I ask people to send me a bio, it's 14 pages long. That's it. So, Alicia, you get it. Here's a fun fact, and we're going to dive right into the interview. Alicia entered her first pageant at the age of, drum rolls, 50 years old. So, welcome, Alicia. I'm thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much, Joyce. I appreciate it. And I understand the whole thing with the bio too, you know, me being a show host. It when you ask people to send you a bio and it's like a mile long, it's like, okay, what do I pull out?
No, exactly. And
Right.
The good news is I took more. I have more to add during, but you didn't give it to me. Full disclosure,
Right.
It's it. So the first question, I am curious. Please tell us about your experience winning your first beauty pageant at 50.
At 50 years old. Yes. Listen, it's not like I haven't been approached throughout my life to do pageants. I was married really young, so I thought that, and I'm short, I'm 5 feet, like half an inch. And so I never thought the pageant world was for me. I got married young, so I'm like, well, there's no way I would ever be in a pageant. So no one would believe, because when I say this, they don't believe me, that I had really self-confidence issues, really, I was really challenged with looking at myself as pretty or beautiful or anything like that. Most of my life, decades of my life. And so once I had gotten over that hump and really started putting myself out there more in my 40s, pageant came knocking again. And I kept saying no to it. For 3 years, actually, this particular pageant was in my in my view. And people kept telling me, oh, you should be in the pageant. You should do this. I owned a beauty business at the time. So they're like, you'll be perfect. You should be a contestant, or you should be a judge or something in the pageant system. And then one day, the pageant director, Marlena Martin, she gave me an award, and she called me and she's like, why don't you do the pageant this year? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And I kept hemming and hawing. And I was, that was the year I was turning 50. Actually, I met her 2 weeks before my 50th birthday. She was giving me the award, and she would not let me go. She would not let me. She kept calling me back and saying, you'll be so great. You need to come do this because of all the things that you're doing, all the work that you're doing with people, helping them build their confidence and all this kind of thing. And I had to stop and really ask myself, why am I resisting this so much? So I have this 7 Secrets to Audacious Confidence. It's a free download on audaciousconfidence.com. So I had to stop and actually recognize that I'm in resistance. That's one of my steps. That's step number 5, that I'm in resistance. And then try to figure out, what am I actually resisting here by saying no all the time? Because this opportunity keeps coming my way and I keep resisting it. So that's just a little hint, when things keep coming your way and you keep resisting it, start questioning, why are you resisting it? Not why does it keep coming into your life, but why are you continuing to resist it? And I realized I was resisting being judged because my whole life, I never felt good enough. I never felt like I was enough. I was never smart enough, tall enough, pretty enough. I was just never enough. And so that feeling of being judged was a deep core wound of mine. And it was causing me to resist actually being judged, not like, yes, people in my life are going to judge. Why do you need to do a beauty pageant? You're 50 years old. What are you doing? But also the actual judges are going to be sitting in front of me, judging me and saying whether or not I was good enough to win. Yep. And I'm like, what is that going to do to my self-esteem if I don't win? But, so all that was the deep conversation that was happening inside of me. That talk about conflict, right? So that was the deep inner conflict that was going on inside of me. And once I recognized it and addressed it and confronted it, I was like, listen, this is not about whether I'm good enough to be the crowned queen. It has nothing to do with that. This is about going to an experience, enjoying myself, my alter ego, which is another secret of the 7 secrets. My alter ego was actually a beauty queen. So I'm like, I get to live out my alter ego in real life. Who doesn't want to do that? Right. So once I recognized it, and I confronted it, and I was like, let's go, let's do this. We're not going to sit in fear. We're not going to sit in doubt and this belief that we're not good enough. Let's just go and do it. And I did, and I won. And I was like, woohoo. So that's the whole story.
Well, I am so glad I asked that question, because you started your answer by saying nobody would believe you. And that's why you're so good and real and authentic and the Velveteen Rabbit of 2022, because you help people who maybe won't look as you are beautiful, whether you accept the compliment or not. That is just the fact in my eyes. So when people look at you and hear you say, well, I wasn't confident for all those years, they'll say, well, if she wasn't, no wonder why I don't. And that's why, now I'm not here to say why you do what you do, but that is why you do what you do.
It is a big reason why I do what I do, because oh my God, I held myself back so much for so many things, feeling and believing the wrong things about myself. And that inner conflict was strong, and it was forceful, and I had to unravel it. I had to dig in deep and figure it all out. And so, it's still a work in progress. We're never done. Oh
my God.
We're never done. But, I'll be 53 in a few days. I don't know when this is airing, but as we're doing this interview, I'll be 53 in a few days. And people still are like, we can't believe that you're anywhere close to 50, but
Well, I'm going to tell you, full disclosure here. When coaches say, oh, I know why I do it, and they're not real, meaning that the topic they select, it shows. Right. Well, my story, and I'm just going to do 3 sentences, is that I wasn't heard for many, many years. So here, my signature in my brand is feeling heard during difficult conversations. Why did Joyce get that? Well, a friend of mine who's a coach interviewed me, and she said, how does your family come into your life? I said, well, my parents aren't living anymore. She says, that's irrelevant. Where do you bring your family? And that's when it was boom. I got the answer, Alicia, and everybody watching, is that I wasn't heard. And there's a whole story that I talk about now. When I realized that, no wonder why. And I didn't know the answer. Why do I have people talk about respect and, dealing with bullies? I had so many bullies in my life that I didn't deal with. Now, bring it on. So, yay, let's clap for everybody here, including both of us, who've had to overcome those little demons.
Right. And then the beautiful thing about it is that you can take that now and use it to empower other people. Or I don't want to use the word empower because we're all empowered, but to really influence them to step into their power.
Yes.
So, take your mess and make it your message. They have all these great little cliches that we can use, but
and they're all true. And they're all
so
true.
true.
As long and people sometimes say to me, why are you so real? You shouldn't be so real. I said, well, it's interesting.
What else am I going to be?
If I'm not real and a phony, we all know those speakers and coaches. That's when people can really, you see them come alive. Oh my God, if this happened to her. Well, as we move on, conflict is something that we talk a lot about on Kick Conflict to the Curb. So I'm curious how conflict and what you notice with your clients, what kind of patterns do you see when you deal with them?
So in my intro, you talked about using brain science tools and people data tools. So I am Colby certified and Predictive Index certified. So I use the 3 parts of the mind. The cognitive, it's how you think. The affective, how you feel, and the cognitive is how you do. And so we do these assessments on individuals, and we're able to see through those self-reporting assessments where there is the potential for conflict to lie within either person to person or people on teams. And I'll tell you, Joyce, it is dead on. I have not yet experienced somewhere where we say there's a potential for conflict and we explain what the conflict is, what that potential is and why it's happening. And someone doesn't go, oh my God, yeah, that's happening. That is happening all the time, because especially in the cognitive part of the mind, and that's probably a new term for a lot of people, because although
tell us more.
Yeah, although it's been around since Aristotle wrote about it 400 years ago, even though it's been around for a long time, psychology and this whole mindset and all these different I guess disciplines haven't really dug deep into the cognitive part. And so, we think of the subconscious mind. It's deep in the subconscious. It's how you were really wired to instinctively do the things you do. It's your specific pattern for problem solving and striving. So anytime you're trying to do something big or great, or just even do something that you have never done before, you have this very specific pattern that is unique to you, that you will automatically just fall into. And all of us have it. And so what school has done, going through years and years of education, it's kind of diminished or buried our instinctive way of doing things. So and I'll talk about myself for a second, just to kind of unpack this cognitive thing. I am... So the way I operate is through brainstorming. I make decisions quickly. I'm a risk taker. I don't need a whole lot of information. I need just enough information to be dangerous. And, whether there's a system or not, I can work with something, and I can envision solutions. I can see solutions before I actually have to go and execute it. Now, that's kind of a breakdown of my cognitive pattern. There are some people who have to do the research. They have to get all the information before they can take action. They may be averse to risk. They may need to have a lot of detailed process involved before they take an action. And so sometimes when you have someone who is very detail oriented on the other side of the spectrum is someone who is very simplified. They just want the bullet points. Just give me high level bullet points. Let's go. That could create conflict, because you have one person that has this deep need for information. And on the other side, there's this person that doesn't need any details at all. And so there's conflict that can arise from that, meaning, listen, I need more information. You're not giving me the information. So until I get the information, I can't do anything. And the other person is saying, why can't you do anything? You don't, I'm giving you everything you need, because in their mind, that's all they need.
Mhm.
On the other side, when you look at risk taking versus someone who's averse to risk, that's again in our subconscious patterning. Someone who is a stabilizer might say, oh no, we don't need to do that. That's too risky. And someone else is like, what are you talking about? That's not risky at all. We just need to jump in and do it. We'll figure it out on the way. We'll figure it out on the way to someone who is averse to risk is like, you're just, you're that's like you're just nailing me to the, are you crazy? That is crazy talk. So, we look at these different patterns of how you solve problems, how you strive in the business world. And you do this at home, you do that, you take this everywhere you go. So sometimes I would do this work with a person. They'll say, my spouse needs to, we need to bring my spouse in on this, because this happens at home all the time. And inevitably when we do an assessment on the spouse and them, there is that potential for conflict in one or two areas of those cognitive needs. And so when people understand, and I'm sure you know this, awareness is the beginning of choice. You have to be aware that the problem exists or where the foundation of the problem is. And so when we come in and people begin to, and we bring this awareness to them, then they begin to see, oh, this is not a personal thing. This is not, they just don't like me, or they just don't want to do what I tell them they need to do. It's that they have this deep need to do that, to solve this problem this way. And I have this deep need to solve this problem this way. So let's have a conversation now that is a completely different conversation about how do we bridge this gap to create a new way of doing the solution. So I always tell people, if the person who is executing it, say, let's say a supervisor is here and you're talking to a subordinate and they need to execute it, is it really important that they execute it your way? Or do you want the result? Is the result more important? Because if they can do it faster, better, and with more joy, wouldn't you want that? In addition to getting the result that you want, versus do it my way, and then they take twice as long. It's hard. They don't do a great job at it, and they're frustrated through the whole process. Like, what is the goal here? And so when people are able to see that, oh, okay, if I just tell them the end result, this is what I need, this is the time frame, this is what I need done, and let them go, then I will get the result I want, and I don't have to micromanage, or I don't have to tell them how to do the thing. So,
Alicia, I am going to take the portion right now of this interview and put it on social networking, because you and I and everybody watching knows that most of us have left a job because of this micromanager. And it's terrible to put there's always two sides of the story. And why didn't you speak up to this micromanager? Well, many people don't have those skills. Now, before we go on, and I know at the end, I'm of course going to ask you how people can reach you. How can they find out more about these assessments? Because these sound amazing, and there may be people that really want to get in touch with you about that.
Yeah, so they can go to Kolbe.com. KOLBE. So Kolbe, that's the cognitive assessment. And then Predictive Index is the other assessment tool that I use. And that's more about behavior. That's affective and cognitive. So we can look at behaviors, and we can use these assessments in hiring the right people for the right roles. We can use it to diagnose issues that are happening. If you have conflict in the workplace and you don't understand what's going on, we can use it for succession planning. There are a lot of different applications for these assessment tools that I am certified in, that we use to really help our clients elevate and understand themselves on a deeper level. And like I was saying, for me, I kept doing things the way people were telling me I needed to do it. Like from school, I mentioned how school kind of drowns out your instincts. And so I was horrible at school because it did not suit my natural instinct. School is really in alignment with people who are those researchers, those fact-finding and follow-through people who need structure and process, a lot of process and a lot of information. That's not me. And so I was horrible at school. And so as a result, felt a lot of years felt stupid and felt that I couldn't do anything and I couldn't do it the way they wanted me to do it. And I was frustrated and I was, it hurt. I knew I was intelligent. I'm like, I know I'm a smart person, but why can't, why do I have so much trouble in these areas? And then after I took, especially the Kolbe assessment, and I understood where my zone of genius actually was. I mean, I started to understand it, as I started growing and being an entrepreneur, I started to understand certain things and operate in a certain way, but I didn't really know why. And then once I took this assessment and I understood why, because there was still shame and guilt involved in, even though I was doing it my way, I still felt like I was doing it wrong.
Because it was so different and everyone else was telling you something.
I felt I was so wrong.
No.
And then once I was able to do this assessment and realize, oh no, I have a coach that says I freed the wizard. I was able to free the wizard. I was able to say, oh, I could do this my way and really, really now lean into these strengths and hire people to do the other stuff that I suck at.
Absolutely.
It's like, I don't have to keep beating myself up because I can't do certain things in a certain way. Instead, I can just be free to be me and do things in alignment with the strengths that I have and have more joy. And like doing this, I love, like talking and doing interviews and speaking and all that. I love educating people and showing them new, different, exciting ways of doing things and being themselves and learning how to really, truly understand their strengths and how to use those strengths to grow. There is, and I'm going to let you speak in a minute. There are just two other things I wanted to say.
No, you're great. So what a good interviewee you are, because I've got questions, but yet I'm not interrupting this flow. Oh, God.
There's an action mode called follow through, and so on one spectrum, it's people who are very, very process oriented. They see patterns and systems in everything, almost like OCD. Everything has to be very specific, every I dotted, every T crossed. And on the opposite end of the spectrum are people who are adapters. They adapt. And so someone who adapts, from the outside looking in, they can look disorganized, they can look messy, they can look like, scatterbrained. But their gift, and they face a lot of guilt, a lot of shame around that, because a lot of people society keeps telling you need to be organized in a specific way. Their way of organizing is different. It's not wrong. It suits them. And so when someone who is that very organized, very patterned person comes across someone who's an adapter, there's a lot of judgment that's put on that adapter. But an adapter, they are change agents. They are disruptors. There's a place for them, a very, very unique and very valuable place for them in society to help break systems that are too bureaucratic. Like if you have too many processes, someone who's an adapter can come in and like shortcut a lot of those processes. So their gift is not being valued in the place that they're in. But when you understand that about yourself and understand that about people you're working with, my goodness, you can put them in that role that really allows them to shine. And instead of dropping a lot of guilt and shame on them to say, well, you need to be organized. Your desk is a mess. You need to keep things organized and you need to, I bet you if you ask them where something is, they can find it.
Like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
So it's not that they're disorganized. It's that they have a different process, the way they see things. It's like a bee. A bee doesn't fly in a straight line. A bee zigzags. And the purpose of the zigzagging or the random pattern of a bee is to pollinate flowers in a random way, to hit all the flowers in different ways. So that is how someone who is an adapter works. And so when we understand that about people, we stop putting judgment on them and making them feel bad about themselves because they are who they are. So that's why I feel like the work I do is so, so important. And then the second thing I was going to say is this quote. I say this quote every time I have a chance to. It's by Albert Einstein, and it speaks to me so profoundly because that's how I felt. And he says, everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its entire life believing it's stupid. So I am fish freers. I'm here to free the fish and put them in water.
And I saw your video on your homepage and you mentioned that quote. And I'm glad we didn't have the interview because I couldn't, actually, it's okay to laugh. I couldn't stop laughing. I said, Einstein, so right. So you touched upon this next question that I'm going to ask you is that people come to me many times because they don't feel heard and they don't know necessarily why, but they know they're frustrated and they stay at the same job because it is what it is. It's the money or whatever reason. And one of the questions I'm always asking them is what keeps you there? Then I have to shut up, Alicia, and listen. And if they take time, I still have to shut up because sometimes that's the first time they've asked that question. And what comes out almost, I'm going to say 99% of the time, is they don't feel heard because maybe their desk is messy, but they know they contribute so much. So my question to you is when you meet people who they don't feel heard, how do you help them see that they can? And what gifts do you give to them?
So when we do our report, there's so many valuable descriptive sentences, phrases that's in the report that describes them. And I love to tell them, listen, go through, like, there's a particular part of the report that gives a lot of adjectives. And I tell them to highlight the adjectives that really, really resonate with them within their zone. Highlight those adjectives that speak most to them. And then use that terminology with someone else. So whether they're going in for a new job or they've been at a job and they want to share their own, what they're good at. Sometimes we just don't have the language. We just don't know how to describe it. We just don't know how to get people to understand our true value. And so one of the descriptors that I have from Predictive Index, so I'm a maverick, any Predictive Index people out there, I'm a maverick if you can't already tell. And so the way they describe me is an out-of-the-box thinker, undaunted by failure. That's me. I will continue to iterate. I will continue to brainstorm. I will continue to think differently about a problem or a situation. And a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy and like, you can't do that. I'm like, we haven't tried it yet. I don't care if it doesn't work. We could try it. I'm willing to try pretty much anything that I think about or that someone suggests that within the business realm I'm talking about here, like I'm not jumping out of a plane or anything like that, but I'm willing to experiment. I'm willing to try things. And so when you're able to really articulate your strengths and say, you know what, I do brainstorm. I'm a great brainstormer. And I know that not every idea is a winner, right? I'll come up with 100 ideas and I know not every idea is a winner, But I also have to understand that when I'm around other people, say for instance, like my assistant, I'll throw out 3-4 different things to her. And she would just stand there like a deer in headlights. And then I have to remember, no, I have to go back and like break it down, because everything I say sounds urgent. Everything I say sounds like we need to do this right now. So I have to realize that how I speak sometimes, because I am that quick start type person, that it comes out as let's do it now.
Sure.
Type of way. And I have to pull myself back and say, okay, let's prioritize what we need to do. So there's a lot as well in learning. When you become self-aware of a lot of these things, you also become aware of some of the blind spots that you may have had that you don't realize how you come across to other people. And so even in that, you can now understand, okay, I need to take a step back. So if you're a leader, or you're a manager, you're working with people and you're always like, let's go. You realize that there are people who cannot let's go. And they need time to actually put things in a framework. They need time to dig into the details. They need time to organize their thoughts before they can take action. And so you're up the hill and the rest of them are still like walking around in the valley, like bumping into each other, like, we don't know what to do. And so, as leaders, we need to be very self-aware of how we're coming across to other people as well. So I'm hoping I'm answering the question.
Oh, you absolutely are.
Right. When you're
absolutely
become self-aware with these tools, when you understand, then you can make better choices in how you present yourself, how you communicate with other people, and that creates conflict if you're not aware that you're running roughshod over people.
Well,
if you're not aware of that.
You remind me, you mentioned blind spots. I love blind spots when either I do a group coaching session or one-on-one. And when I was a new coach, talking about authenticity here, oh, wow. I thought that you got to give advice. And because, even in high school, that was who Joyce was. People came up to me and, for advice. So, okay, I was good at it back then. Wow, was that a blind spot, Alicia, when I learned, when my coaches, this was many years ago, said, Joyce, they didn't say shut up, but I'm going to say, if you just close your mouth and learn how to ask really good questions, not judgmental questions, don't give advice, let them come up with the answers. It took a long time for me to cure myself from that. That was such a big blind spot because I didn't know about it. And that's why I'm so glad you brought that up. And what I want to do is move on to something that you've mentioned, the word confidence. If I counted, it would be at least 50 times so far during our interview. How do you help people see and feel confident when they don't see it? Because they, like you, like me, like almost everybody, no matter what our background, I came from a very warm, welcoming family, yet I still didn't feel heard. I didn't see that till later. How do you deal with people not even depending on their background? It doesn't matter, for them to see that gift that they have that they just don't see. Are you with me?
I am with you.
Okay. I knew you would, but I better, listen and ask that question if I'm a coach. Okay.
So I full transparency here too. I'm not a coach. I don't play one on TV. I don't call myself a coach, even though that's what I do a lot of times. I do coach people,
Sure.
The confidence is inside of each and every one of us. So we are all born with confidence. And see, I used to have a different belief. I used to believe that you were either born with confidence or you weren't. And I was one of those people who weren't born with it. So I was doomed to mediocrity. I was doomed to, ordinary life, even though I wanted the big shiny things, I was like, you can't never have that.
And that's the story we tell ourselves.
That
was your story.
That was my story.
Continue.
And so if you look at a baby does not lack confidence at all.
Mm-hmm.
A baby will cry when it needs, and it will cry loudly when it needs something. It doesn't care that you're sleeping, that we're in church, that we're in the library. It doesn't care. That's confidence. When a child falls down trying to walk and keeps falling and keeps getting up, that's confidence.
Mm-hmm.
They're not restricted by, oh, you've fallen, you're a failure. So, don't bother to try to get back up again. So where in our life did that confidence begin to leave us? And that's kind of what I want people to start to think about. So it's about, like you said, asking really poignant questions. As a child, when you were learning to walk and you fell, did you beat yourself up about it? Did you say, oh, I'll never walk again? I'm horrible. I am worthless. I can't do this. So at some point in your life, you started that narrative, usually hearing it from somewhere else, and you took that over. So it's about asking the questions about when in your life do you remember not being good enough, feeling like you weren't enough, or feeling those feelings, and having people really start thinking about it, because we don't think about those things. I know for me, when I was a child, I was audacious. So audacious is my word. We've said that a lot too.
Yes.
I actually just got my registered trademark for audacious confidence. Thank you very much.
Good, good. You better. People will steal it. I know that. Kick conflict to the curb. I had to approach a couple people because I do have the TM after it there. Yes, so you get that quickly, lady.
So I got the R. I got the registered trademark now, not just the TM now. Yes. I'm registered.
Good.
So I was audacious. I was bold. I was outspoken. People knew I was in a room. And so when I thought back to that child, so this is what I want people to think about. When I looked back at that 3-year-old child and who I was at 43, yeah, it was 43 when I really started unpacking all of this. So in those 40 years, what happened to me? And it happened in my childhood. Again, it happened when I my family moved to Australia when I was a young child in the 70s in a small town. And this is nothing against Australia. Australia is a beautiful, beautiful place. I love it. I wish I could go back there. But I grew up in Australia in a small town. And so being super different, I was the only dark-skinned, woolly hair, afro-haired little girl. And I was a tiny little thing. Like I said, I'm no bigger than a minute, even now as an adult. But there were so many things that happened through the course of that childhood that shut me down. I no longer spoke out. I no longer, because people teased me for my accent, for my voice. People would tease me for the way I spoke. So I stopped talking. I was teased for the way I looked. So I tried to hide. I would hide behind everything. And so that's where I lost my confidence.
Sure.
And even though I felt as an adult, I was confident, that programming was running in the background and not allowing me to really step forward, because every time I tried to step forward, you better not be seen. You better not be heard.
Chop
You're
down.
be ridiculed.
Chop, chop, chop.
Chop, chop, chop. So for anyone who's listening, that's kind of how we want to start that process of really going back and thinking about what was a time that you were like so bold and like as a child, because all of us as children, even if you have to say, well, okay, I cried as a baby. If you can't remember anything else, well, let's go back to that. Okay. I cried as a baby, So it's about now looking at those. I love Dr. Phil says you have to find those defining moments in your life those pivotal moments that created those shifts in your life. And it happened in every decade of your life. There were those defining moments. There were those pivotal people in your life, whether they were negative people that shut you down or someone that encouraged you, that pulled you up. There were those pivotal people in your life. And when you start looking at those defining moments in every decade of your life and start thinking, well, what if I made a different choice? Was I even able to make a different choice? And you really think about it and say, you know what? With the information I had and the time that I was in, I really wasn't even able to make a different choice. This is the choice that I was able to make. And then start forgiving all those little things because that was the choice that you made and you didn't have any other information to make a different choice. So forgive that and keep moving forward. And then we can start reclaiming your confidence bit by bit. And when you do these assessments and you realize how awesome you are, and you find your superpowers, as I say, and you know what your zone of genius really is, and you can really sit in that, and you can really lean into that, then you say, these are my strengths. This is where I'm most powerful. Then that elevates your confidence to a whole other level. Because when
this is great.
Have those assessments, when you have that report back, and you can look back at that and you could say, oh, man, yes, you know what? I can do this. This is where I shine. And you find opportunities, whether it's at work or at home, because sometimes we don't get a chance at work to shine as bright as we would like, but bring it at home too. And this is where I can really shine. And that helps really, really elevate your confidence.
Well, as I'm listening to you, Alicia, I mean, I'm definitely listening. And I've got all my what questions as a coach, but I need to let you know something that just recently happened to me. Like I said before, there are a lot of bullies in my life, and maybe it's not the mean kid in the playground, but it's still someone saying to me, even to this day, why don't you retire? All of your friends are retired. And there's that push, push, push. And I used to answer, or why are you so vivacious? Don't you think you should chill? Well, I've always been like this.
At your age.
Yeah, at my
age.
At my age, what the heck does that mean?
I don't know.
So recently, I have a new gift that I've given to myself and my family. Triggers in my life used to set me off. Well, I've learned all these wonderful strategies. I now know they're a trigger. I don't take them personally anymore. They are who they are because of who they are. It's like this chair. I always like talking about this in my online classes. You don't get mad at a chair for being a chair. It's who they are. Well, the same thing. You can't get mad at those narcissists in your life and bullies. Well, up to about a year ago, I taught people, and I did on my own. I figured out what strategy am I going to use to speak my voice. Well, now I have a new strategy. Are you ready to hear what it is?
I'm ready. Yes.
It's called silence. I have become so much more at peace within myself. And obviously, I give this to family members because we share the same triggers, or clients. And I don't mean not to use your voice, but let that trigger talk, say all the, I'm going to say stupid, narcissistic things that they say. That doesn't mean you have to react. And This is the best. And it's not a blind spot. It's just changing the mindset. And I know you and I could talk about that.
We could talk for hours and hours and hours.
Yes,
yeah.
I think we are related, maybe by a different father or something, because I listened to you. I said, wait a minute, that's my story. Now, I wasn't in a beauty pageant. Okay. So confidence, it's how, of course, we portray it. You're a lot about image. I mean, that's all I do is I was born with makeup on. I really think I was. And that's that outer, but it's that inner that we help people with. And
And I used to do both. I mean, I do both. I was a makeup for 17 years. I had my business was in makeup and hair.
I do remember that. Yes,
Yeah.
I do remember that. It comes in handy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does.
So I'm going to ask you a question, even though you've touched upon it. What would you tell your 18, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self that you now know at your age?
Wow. Yeah, that's at 18, I thought I knew everything I needed to know, right? And I believe I would tell my 18-year-old self to take more chances. To take more chances because after 18, I became a flight attendant at 18. So I'm saying this as someone who just went off, became a flight attendant, and then left the country. So I was born in Trinidad, and my whole family's over there. And when I say my whole family, I mean like my parents, my brother, my sister, and I left them there. They're still there, and I came up to the United States after I was a flight attendant. I saved money to go to college here in the United States, and so it was once I came here for college that I stopped taking risks. I stopped taking risks, and I'll tell you this because I don't think I've really ever shared this before with anybody. So this is a new one for you. So as an immigrant into this country, there were all these stories about immigrants and being deported and all kinds of things. And so there was a lot of fear there about, being an immigrant, and I think that fear started to hold me back from taking chances.
Of course.
And so I would tell my 18-year-old self, because even as a flight attendant, I didn't take much chances. I was just in it to save money. I would say, experience more of the world while you have the opportunity, because you're flying into places. Go out and experience the world more. Take more chances, and enjoy the ride more.
Oh, that's beautiful. And as you go away from your 18 yourself into your next decade and the decade after, I have a feeling that's yours. That's yours to keep. I mean, if you had, I never asked anybody this question. If you had a hat, and you may already have that expression, and it doesn't matter how many words or sentences, what would your message be? Your not the 18, just what would you like to say to the world? This is your motto.
I think I do say it through audacious confidence, because I say it's that unshakable belief in yourself that's so bold, so brave, that you dare to step into what's possible despite your feelings, fears, or past failures, to go boldly in the direction of your dreams and live the life that you deserve.
Love it. And then I'm going to look over here because I have, this is your quote that you have on your email. We are passionate about empowering individuals with the resources and tools they need to amplify themselves so they can live from a place of limitless possibilities. And that is what this interview has been about. You have been such a great guest. I've had to hardly ask a question. You many times. No, I mean, I'm not going to edit a thing. The only thing I'm going to do is take this clip and this clip. I'm not changing a word. You talk, and that's why you're such a good guest, because sometimes people just sit there waiting for the next question, and then my eyes go to the question. Didn't have to do that. So, I mean, what I want to say to those of you watching this interview is that you just heard Alicia's story about her background, about some of the frustrations and fears that she experienced. And Alicia, you're gonna have more. I'm gonna have more. This new online presence that we all have, I had to get rid of, and we didn't even talk about this. We will next time. The imposter syndrome.
Oh,
Am
yeah.
I good enough to do this? Am I?
Oh,
Oh
I got
my
stories
God.
about that. Oh my gosh. I got some good stories about my own
Well,
imposter syndrome.
we're going to do that. I'm going to save that for our next interview, which you better have, because we have it. We've got a lot of witnesses. And yes, that's if I had to say, yes, kick conflict to the curb, kick those blind spots to the curb, kick the imposter syndrome to the curb, because we can do it even though we fall. I have a book called Take the Ride of Your Life, and it's all about falling off the bike of life, because anything that I do doesn't come easy. I'm just saying, that's my thing. I work. That's what they're going to say on my tombstone. She worked hard, but she did it.
Did it. Yeah.
And that's probably going to be the closing to this interview.
That's what's going to be on your hat.
Absolutely, folks. Those of you that don't have to work hard and you do it, go for it. Help other people. For those
And
of
don't
you,
ever retire.
Oh, I'm not. I mean, I'm going to be coaching even when I'm not around anymore. My family knows that. I'm going to come back and haunt them with the what questions. Well, listen, how can people reach you? Please don't stop talking at this question. Websites, email, what would you like to ask? Your call to action. I'm giving you the floor now.
Oh,
lady.
thank you. So 2 things. One, go to audaciousconfidence.com and take, there's the free download of the 7 secrets to audacious confidence. There's a mini course that's absolutely free that you can take there as well. So that's my gift to you. You can go do that. And then you can reach me. It's so easy. It's Alicia, Alicia 360.com. So Alicia360.com. I have links to my websites. I have links to all my social media there. I have links to my WhatsApp, my text. You can text me, WhatsApp me, email me right from that site. So Alicia360.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me, and you can connect with me everywhere.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I went on your website. It's so easy. It is easy to connect with you. I didn't, because I knew we were going to have this interview. Well, I've got one more question, and you better say yes. Will you please come back?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Absolutely. Great. Yes is even better. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this engaging interview. I learned so much about you, and you made me think about some of the things in my own life. And everybody, for Kick Conflict to the Curb, thank you for watching. And you will see this all over social media. And I thank you. And remember, one of the things that I always stop almost every single video with is, you get what you tolerate. So go for it. Thanks so much for watching.